The crowd roared as the sleek spacecraft gleamed under the bright morning sun. Captain Susan Miller stood tall on the platform, her blue uniform crisp against the clear sky. Today marked humanity's greatest achievement, the launch of Earth's first faster-than-light vessel, the USS Resilience. "This is more than just a ship," Susan said to Lieutenant Alex Johnson, who stood beside her. "This is our future among the stars." Alex nodded, his eyes fixed on the magnificent craft. "Hard to believe we finally did it. After years of unified global effort, humans had managed to crack the code of faster-than-light travel. The Resilience represented hope, exploration, and humanity's first real step into the vast universe." Admiral Frank Peterson approached them, his weathered face bearing a rare smile. "Captain Miller, Lieutenant Johnson, it's time. Make us proud out there." Susan saluted sharply. "We won't let you. Down, sir." 3 days later, the Resilience pushed beyond the orbit of Mars, its advanced engines humming with power. The crew worked with focused excitement, each person aware they were making history with every passing second. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings at the edge of our solar system," said the sensor officer, her voice tight with tension. Susan leaned forward in her command chair. "Define unusual." "Massive objects, ma'am. Dozens of them. They just appeared." The main screen flickered to life, showing a formation of vessels unlike anything humans had ever built. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls shimmering with colors that seemed to shift between states of matter. "Open all communication channels," Susan ordered, her heart pounding against her ribs. For several long minutes, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the main screen changed. A being appeared, vaguely humanoid but with skin like polished metal and eyes that contained swirling galaxies. "Greetings, humans of Earth," the being said, in perfect English. "I am Krax, representative of the Galactic Council. We have been observing your development with great interest." The bridge fell silent. First contact. The moment humanity had speculated about for centuries was happening now, on Susan's watch. "I am Captain Susan Miller of Earth's vessel Resilience. We welcome peaceful contact." Krax's face rippled in what might have been a smile. "We have much to discuss, Captain. Your species has developed faster than light travel at a critical moment. The galaxy faces a threat that concerns us all." Within hours, the Resilience was escorted to the massive alien flagship. Susan, Alex, and 2 other officers stood in a vast chamber that seemed to be made of living crystal. "The Void Swarm," Krax explained, projecting a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. Nearly a third glowed an ominous red. "They consume worlds, transform entire species, and expand relentlessly. They have destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours." "Why tell us this?" Susan asked. "Because they are coming toward your solar system next. Your world stands directly in their path." The news sent shockwaves through Earth's governments. Emergency sessions were held. Debates raged. But in the end, the decision was unanimous. Humanity would accept the Galactic Council's offer of protection and technology. Over the next 6 months, Earth changed dramatically. Alien engineers helped build defense systems around the planet. Medical technology leaped forward by centuries. Energy concerns vanished overnight with the introduction of zero-point energy generators. Susan, now promoted to oversee the integration of alien technology into Earth's defense fleet, noticed something troubling. The aliens were helpful but guarded. They shared technology but limited explanations. And sometimes she caught them watching humans with expressions that looked uncomfortably like pity. "Something isn't right," she told Alex one night as they reviewed security protocols at the new lunar base. Alex slid a datapad across the table. "I've been monitoring their communication channels. Most are open as agreed, but there's an encrypted stream I managed to partially decode." The partial translation made Susan's blood run cold. Phrases like acceptable losses and strategic buffer zone appeared repeatedly in reference to Earth. Using her new clearance, Susan dug deeper. She and Alex worked through the night, piecing together fragments of information. The picture that emerged was disturbing. "We need to speak with Admiral Peterson immediately," Susan said as the sun rose over the horizon. In the Admiral's secure office, Susan laid out their findings. They're not just protecting us, they're positioning us as a sacrifice. Admiral Peterson's face darkened. Explain. The Galactic Council isn't planning to make a stand here. They're fortifying Earth just enough to slow down the Void Swarm while they evacuate their core worlds. We're a speed bump, nothing more. When confronted, Krax didn't deny it. The alien diplomat stood in the secure chamber, surrounded by Earth's military leadership. You must understand our position, Krax said, those galaxy eyes unreadable. The Void Swarm has consumed thousands of worlds. The Council has determined that certain sacrifices are necessary for the survival of galactic civilization, and you decided Earth would be one of those sacrifices, Susan said, without telling us. Your species is young, promising, but limited. The Council calculated that your value as a temporal buffer outweighed your preservation. Krax's voice remained calm, as if discussing simple mathematics rather than the extinction of humanity. We have given you technologies that might allow some of your people to survive. That is more consideration than many species received. Before Earth's leaders could respond, alarms blared throughout the facility. Outside, the massive alien ships were powering up, their engines creating aurora-like lights in the sky. What's happening? Admiral Peterson demanded. The Void Swarm has accelerated its approach, Krax said. The Council has ordered an immediate withdrawal of all non-essential assets from this sector. You're leaving? Susan asked in disbelief. The defense systems we installed will give your people time to prepare or evacuate. That is all we can offer. Krax moved toward the exit. I am sorry, Captain Miller. If it means anything, many of us admired your species' potential. Within hours, the alien fleet vanished, leaving behind only the promised defense systems and a handful of technologies. Humanity stood alone as the first scout ships of the Void Swarm appeared at the edge of the solar system. Dark, organic shapes that moved like hungry predators. Susan stood at the command center window, watching Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet move into position. Alex joined her, his face grim but determined. So the galaxy gave up the fight, he said quietly. Susan nodded, her jaw set firmly. But we won't. The news of alien betrayal spread across Earth like wildfire. Screens in every home showed the same images, the Galactic Council ships vanishing into the darkness of space, leaving humanity to face the approaching Void Swarm alone. Dr. Ryan White watched the emergency broadcast from his lab, his fingers tightening around his coffee mug until his knuckles turned white. As Earth's leading expert on the alien technology left behind, he knew better than most just how dire their situation was. They gave us toys, he muttered to his team of scientists gathered around. Advanced toys, but not their real weapons. The lab door burst open as a young woman with bright eyes and wild hair rushed in. Despite the crisis, she moved with energy that seemed out of place. Dr. White, I figured out how the shield modulators work, she announced, dropping a modified device on his desk. I'm Zora, by the way. They just transferred me from the Tokyo facility. Ryan stared at the device, then at the newcomer. You modified alien tech without authorization? We're about to face space monsters with hand-me-down weapons, Zora replied, with a shrug. I figured rules matter less than results now. Before Ryan could respond, all screens in the lab switched to an emergency broadcast. Admiral Peterson stood with world leaders behind him, his face grave but determined. Citizens of Earth, he began, we face an unprecedented threat. But make no mistake, humanity will not go quietly into the night. As of this moment, all nations have agreed to form a united Earth Defense Force. We stand as one people with one purpose: survival. Across the globe, the initial panic began to transform into grim resolve. Nations that had been enemies for generations now shared resources and information freely. Factories converted to produce weapons and ships. Military forces combined under unified command. General Olivia Carter stood before a massive holographic display showing Earth's defensive positions. As the newly appointed head of military strategy, she had been working without sleep to develop a plan that might give humanity a fighting chance. We have 3 layers to work with, she explained. To the gathered military commanders, orbital platforms are our first line. The lunar bases form our middle defense, and if it comes to it, ground forces will be our last stand. Senator Paul Martinez moved through the room, speaking quietly with representatives from dozens of nations. His job was perhaps the hardest, keeping the fragile human alliance together as resources became scarce and fear grew. "We cannot afford division," he reminded a group of arguing officials. "The Void Swarm won't care about our borders or political differences. United, we might survive. Divided, we certainly fall." In Dr. White's lab, now expanded to take over an entire research complex, thousands of scientists worked frantically to understand and improve the alien technology. Progress came in bursts, a weapons system here, a shield enhancement there. Zora had proven herself invaluable, her unconventional thinking breaking through problems that stumped others. She stood now before a modified communication array, excitement making her hands shake. "The swarm uses some kind of hive mind," she explained to Dr. White. "What if we could disrupt it? These shield modulators, they emit frequencies and patterns I think might interfere with their coordination." Ryan studied her work with growing hope. "If this works, we could reduce their greatest advantage, their unified response to our attacks." Days turned to weeks as humanity transformed itself into a war machine with a single purpose. Civilian ships were retrofitted with weapons. Children trained alongside adults to operate emergency systems. Every hand that could work did. The first alarm came from the outer detection grid installed beyond Neptune's orbit. A single signal, then dozens, then thousands. Scout vessels of the Void Swarm had arrived. In the Global Command Center, Admiral Peterson watched the incoming data with General Carter at his side. "They're spreading out," Carter observed. "Classic encirclement pattern." Peterson nodded grimly. "Send in the probe teams. We need to know what we're really facing." The specially designed stealth probes sent back images that chilled the blood of even the most hardened military personnel. The Void Swarm ships were partly mechanical, partly organic, living weapons that pulsed and shifted like massive predatory animals. And there were far more of them than the Galactic Council had admitted. "My God," whispered Senator Martinez as he viewed the footage. "How do we stand against that?" General Carter's voice was steady when she answered. "One shot at a time, Senator. One battle at a time." Dr. White's team worked frantically to deploy Zora's disruption technology across the defense grid. Early tests showed promise. The frequencies seemed to confuse captured swarm scout drones, making them less coordinated. "It's not perfect," Zora admitted as they prepared to scale up the system. "But it might give us an edge." As Earth braced for impact, an unexpected message arrived from deep space. A small vessel approached, broadcasting on frequencies the Galactic Council had used. "This is Captain Vex of the Free Ships," came the transmission. "We are a coalition who rejected the Council's decision to abandon Earth. We bring information about swarm tactics and weaknesses. Request permission to approach." Admiral Peterson and the global leaders debated briefly before allowing the small ship to enter Earth space under heavy guard. The aliens aboard, a mixture of species humanity had never seen before, seemed genuinely distressed by their council's actions. "Not all of us agreed with the decision to sacrifice your world," explained Vex, a tall being with iridescent scales. "Some of us believe that all sentient life deserves the chance to fight for its existence." The information they brought was invaluable. Detailed analysis of previous swarm attacks, weaknesses observed in their formations, and most importantly, the knowledge that the swarm classified threats by levels. "Your species was classified as a minimal threat," Vex told them. "That works in your favor. They will not commit their full forces immediately, giving you time to prove yourselves more dangerous than they anticipated." As the first wave of Void swarm vessels entered the solar system, humanity prepared for the fight of its existence. The orbital defense platforms powered up. The lunar bases readied their experimental weapons. On Earth, people looked to the skies with fear, but also fierce determination. In the command center, Captain Susan Miller took her place at the helm of Earth's hastily assembled defense fleet. Lieutenant Alex Johnson stood beside her as tactical officer. "The galaxy gave up," Susan said quietly, watching the approaching enemy on the tactical display. "But we're still here, and we're not going anywhere." Around the world, humans stood, ready. Not because they expected to win, but because giving up had never been humanity's way. The void of space lit up as the first shots were fired. Earth's orbital platforms released a coordinated barrage against the approaching void swarm ships. From his command station, Commander Eric Walsh watched the battle unfold with tense focus. "Grid 6, concentrate fire on that larger vessel," he ordered. The crew around him worked with practiced precision despite never having faced an alien enemy before. The modified alien weapons performed better than expected. Dr. White's team had worked day and night to enhance their power output. Beams of intense energy struck the lead swarm vessels, causing several to shudder and break formation. "They didn't expect us to be so ready," Eric said to his second-in-command. "Advantage, humanity." But the victory was brief. The swarm quickly adapted, changing their approach and splitting into smaller groups that moved with disturbing intelligence. They targeted weak points in the defense grid with uncanny accuracy. "They're learning," Eric warned through the communication channel. "All stations keep rotating shield frequencies according to protocol." On the main battle station, Dr. Lisa Brown monitored strange readings from the damaged swarm ships. As the medical officer tasked with understanding the biological aspects of the enemy, she watched with growing concern as the readings spiked. "Commander Walsh, the damaged vessels are releasing something into space," she reported. "Some kind of spores or microscopic organisms." Vex, the alien ally who had refused to abandon Earth, examined the data. "This is how they transform worlds. The spores will attempt to change any organic matter they touch into extensions of the swarm." "Can they affect humans?" Lisa asked, already planning countermeasures. "All carbon-based life is vulnerable," Vex confirmed grimly. "This is why so many species fled rather than fight. The swarm doesn't just kill, it converts." On the front lines, the battle intensified. Several swarm ships broke through the outer defense ring heading toward the lunar bases. Captain Susan Miller led a squadron of fighters to intercept them. "Form up, target their propulsion systems," she ordered through the comm system. "Remember your training. These aren't conventional vessels." The fighters swarmed around the much larger alien craft, firing precisely at weak points identified in Vex's intelligence. Two swarm ships spun out of control, their organic mechanical surfaces rupturing in the vacuum of space. Major Sam Garcia watched the battle from his transport ship, his Special Forces team ready for their high-risk mission. "Prepare for boarding," he told his soldiers. "We need to capture data cores from a disabled vessel before they self-destruct." His team had trained for this impossible task for weeks. Each soldier wore a sealed suit designed to protect against the biological weapons of the swarm. As their ship docked with a damaged enemy vessel, Sam felt the weight of humanity's future on his shoulders. "Remember," he said to his team, 15 minutes maximum. Get in, plant the data extractors, get out. The interior of the swarm ship defied human understanding. Corridors seemed to breathe. Surfaces pulsed with light that followed their movements. Strange sounds echoed through chambers that appeared to serve no logical purpose. "This central node looks like what Vex described as their data storage," said one of Sam's team, attaching a device to a pulsing organic pillar. "Initiating data extraction." The swarm ship shuddered around them, as if aware of their intrusion. Walls began to close. Strange creatures, part machine, part organism, emerged from hidden chambers. "Time to go," Sam ordered, firing at the approaching defenders. "Move." They barely escaped before the ship imploded, collapsing in on itself, rather than allowing its secrets to be stolen. But the data extractors had done their job. The team had captured valuable information about how the swarm functioned. Back on Earth, Dr. Lisa Brown worked frantically to develop a countermeasure against the biological weapons the swarm had released. The spores had begun to affect the outer atmosphere, creating strange patterns visible from the ground. "The spores can't penetrate our shielding yet," she explained to Admiral Peterson. "But they're adapting. I need more time to develop a vaccine for our people." In his laboratory, Dr. Ryan White analyzed the data from Major Garcia's mission with Zora's help. The information confirmed what they had suspected. The swarm operated as a vast hive mind, but with specialized controller ships coordinating each attack group. Look at these communication patterns. Zora pointed to a visualization of swarm transmissions. They're constantly sending updates to these larger vessels here and here. Ryan nodded. If we could disrupt those specific channels, the battle above Earth continued for days. The orbital defense grid held, but with mounting casualties. Commander Walsh's station had taken heavy damage, forcing them to abandon 2 sectors. We've destroyed more of them than expected, he reported to Earth Command. But they keep coming and they're getting smarter about our defenses. Vex provided critical tactical advice, having witnessed swarm attacks on other worlds. They will now assess your threat level and respond accordingly. Expect specialized units next. The warning proved accurate. As the first wave of the attack faltered, new swarm vessels appeared at the edge of the solar system. These were different, larger, with appendages that looked unsettlingly like weapons designed specifically to counter Earth's defenses. World killers, Vex said quietly when they appeared on the long-range scanners. They only deploy these against species they consider significant threats. Admiral Peterson looked at the alien with a grim smile. Then we've made an impression. The lunar bases prepared for the coming assault. They had been equipped with experimental weapons, devices that combined human ingenuity with the alien technology left behind. These weapons had never been tested in actual combat. Major Garcia and his team were stationed on the primary lunar base. If they break through, we're the last line before Earth. The world killer ships approached with terrible purpose, ignoring the remaining orbital platforms and heading straight for the moon. They moved together in perfect formation, like the fingers of a closing fist. Commander Walsh ordered all remaining orbital forces to attack the world killers from behind. Don't let them concentrate on the lunar bases. The desperate gambit split the swarm's attention. Several world killers turned to deal with Walsh's forces, while others continued toward the moon. On the lunar surface, the base commanders gave the order: fire all experimental weapons, empty the arsenal if necessary. The moon erupted with energy, as weapons of impossible power launched toward the approaching ships. The experimental devices, products of human determination and alien science, tore through space. 3 world killer ships shattered immediately, their organic components dissolving into space. 2 more spun out of control, crashing into each other in a massive explosion. The remaining world killers pressed on, but now moved with what seemed like caution. For the first time, the void swarm hesitated. The lunar bases paid a terrible price. 2 of the 5 bases were completely destroyed in the counterattack. The main base suffered critical damage, its life support failing. But as the first wave of the swarm attack ended, humanity had achieved what no other species had done. They had bloodied the invaders, destroyed world killer ships, and remained standing. In the command center on Earth, Admiral Peterson received the reports with mixed emotions. The victories had been costly, but they had victories, something the Galactic Council had thought impossible. The swarm is regrouping at the edge of the system, an officer reported. They appear to be waiting. For what? Senator Martinez asked. Captain Susan Miller, her fighter damaged but still operational, provided the answer over the communication channel. For reinforcements. We've just been upgraded from a nuisance to a serious problem. The war room fell silent as Admiral Frank Peterson studied the 3-dimensional map showing the positions of the void swarm. After the first wave of attacks, the enemy had pulled back to the edge of the solar system. For 3 days, they had been still, almost as if confused by humanity's resistance. They're regrouping, Captain Susan Miller said, her uniform still bearing the scorch marks from her last battle, and analyzing our tactics. Admiral Peterson nodded. Then we need to give them something new to think about. It's time we stop just defending and start hitting back. For the first time since the conflict began, Earth prepared to take the fight to the enemy. Shipyards that had been building defensive platforms now constructed attack vessels. Civilian ships were refitted with the most powerful weapons humans could create. Dr. Ryan White worked around the clock in his laboratory. The data extracted from the captured swarm ship had provided invaluable insights into their biological technology. The swarm isn't just mechanical, he explained to the gathered military leaders. Their ships are partly alive. They can heal, adapt, and evolve. He placed a strange device on the table. It pulsed with an eerie blue light. But that gives us an opportunity. This weapon targets their biological components with an engineered virus. It won't destroy them instantly, but it will spread through their connected systems, weakening them from within. Zora, now officially recognized as Dr. White's top assistant, added, "We've combined this with my disruption technology. The virus doesn't just attack their biology, it scrambles the signals between their ships." Across the table, Vex, their alien ally, looked impressed. No species has developed such a targeted approach before. Most simply try to overwhelm the swarm with firepower. Admiral Peterson studied the device. "How do we deliver it?" "That's the hard part," Dr. White admitted. "It needs to be placed directly into one of their command nodes, the brain of their fleet. A ship would need to get close enough to attach it." Captain Miller stepped forward. "I'll lead that mission." Before Admiral Peterson could respond, a communication officer burst into the room. "Sir, we're receiving a signal from the Galactic Council." The main screen flickered to life, showing a familiar face. Krax, the diplomat who had betrayed Earth months ago. "Humans of Earth," he began, his voice carefully neutral. "The Council has been monitoring your conflict with the Void Swarm with great interest." Admiral Peterson's face hardened. "I'm sure you have, watching from a safe distance as we fight the battle you ran from." Krax's expression didn't change. "Your resistance has been unexpected. Several council members have suggested that perhaps our assessment of your species was premature." "You mean we've surprised you by not dying quickly enough," Captain Miller said. "The council wishes to offer additional technological assistance," Krax continued, ignoring the accusation. "Your survival would be beneficial to—" Admiral Peterson cut the transmission with a sharp gesture. "We'll handle this ourselves. We've learned not to rely on fair-weather allies." The room erupted in applause. Earth had found its pride. On the other side of the planet, the swarm had begun its second phase of attack. Unlike the space battle, this assault targeted the planet directly. Small infiltration craft broke through the weakened defenses, landing in remote areas. Colonel Diane Lewis led the ground forces against these landing parties. A veteran of Earth's conflicts, she now faced an enemy unlike any human had encountered before. "They're establishing footholds," she reported from a forward command post. "Each landing zone becomes a small colony within hours. They're transforming the surrounding environment." Drone footage showed the horrifying reality. Around each swarm landing site, the Earth itself changed. Plants twisted into alien forms. The ground developed strange, pulsing patterns. And worse, captured humans were being changed, their bodies and minds absorbed into the swarm consciousness. "We cannot allow them any territory," Colonel Lewis told her troops. "Every inch they control becomes a foothold they use to transform more of our world." Her forces developed hit-and-run tactics that proved surprisingly effective. The swarm expected direct confrontation, not the guerrilla warfare humans had perfected over centuries of fighting each other. "They think in straight lines," Colonel Lewis explained to her officers. "We need to think around corners." Small teams would strike landing sites before the swarm could establish defenses, planting explosives and retreating before the enemy could respond. Local militia groups formed spontaneously, ordinary people defending their homes with whatever weapons they could find. To everyone's surprise, these civilian fighters often succeeded where military units struggled. The swarm couldn't predict the chaotic, desperate tactics of humans fighting for their families and homes. In orbit, Captain Miller prepared for humanity's first major counteroffensive. Her fleet, a mix of military vessels and armed civilian ships, gathered at Earth's L2 point, hidden from the main swarm fleet. "This isn't about winning the war in one strike," she told her crews during the final briefing. "It's about showing them that we can hurt them, that Earth isn't just prey waiting to be consumed, Lieutenant Alex Johnson, now commanding his own vessel, added, and to test Dr. White's new weapon. If it works, we may have found their weakness. The attack began at dawn. Earth's fleet jumped into the midst of the regrouping swarm ships, weapons firing in precise patterns designed to create maximum confusion. Captain Miller's flagship, now renamed Defiance, led the charge toward a massive vessel that Vex had identified as a command node. "Maintain disruption field," she ordered as enemy weapons fire splashed against their shields. "Push forward." The battle was chaos. Swarm ships moved with organic unpredictability, their weapons unlike anything humans had trained for, but the Earth fleet had surprise on their side, and a desperate courage that the swarm couldn't comprehend. Lieutenant Johnson's ship took heavy damage protecting the Defiance's approach. "We can hold them off, Captain," he reported, even as systems failed around him. "Complete the mission." The Defiance pushed through the final defensive line, taking severe damage but remaining operational. As they approached the massive command node, its surface rippled and changed, growing new weapons and defenses before their eyes. "Deploy the package," Captain Miller ordered. From the Defiance's launch bay, a small craft emerged carrying Dr. White's weapon. It accelerated toward the command node, dodging defensive fire with a human pilot's unpredictable moves that the swarm's targeting systems couldn't anticipate. The small craft crashed directly into the command node, detonating on impact. For a moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, patterns of light spread across the massive vessel's surface like a disease moving through veins. "It's working," Captain Miller breathed, watching as the strange effect spread to nearby swarm ships. Through their communication networks, the infected ships didn't explode or die immediately. Instead, they began to move erratically, their coordinated attack patterns dissolving into confusion. Ship crashed into ship as their perfect harmony shattered. "All vessels, commence withdrawal," Captain Miller ordered. "We've done what we came to do." As Earth's battered fleet retreated, Admiral Peterson received an unexpected message at Earth Command. It came not from the battle group, but from a small observation post established by the Galactic Council. "The Council is watching your counterattack with great interest," the message read. "Other species have begun questioning the decision to abandon Earth. Some are considering sending aid." Peterson smiled grimly. "Tell them we'll remember who stood with us when this is over, and who didn't." Across Earth, the news of the successful counterattack spread like wildfire. For the first time since the conflict began, people dared to hope. Humanity had bloodied the nose of the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known, and the Void Swarm, for the first time in its existence, faced an enemy that refused to surrender. The sky above Earth darkened as the Void Swarm launched its full-scale attack. This was no probe, no testing force. This was the hammer blow meant to end humanity once and for all. Thousands of ships, from small drone vessels to massive world destroyers, filled Earth's orbit like a storm of metal and flesh. "They've committed everything," Admiral Frank Peterson said as he watched the tactical display in Earth Command. "This is their final push." Around him, the mood was somber but determined. Months of fighting had taken a terrible toll. Half of Earth's orbital defenses were gone. The lunar bases had been reduced to a single outpost. But humanity had prepared for this moment. Dr. Ryan White entered the command center with Zora at his side. He carried a small device that pulsed with energy. "It's ready," he announced. "A virus that can target the swarm's central intelligence, what Vex calls the overmind, not just disrupting communications between ships, but attacking the controlling consciousness itself." Admiral Peterson studied the device. "How is this different from the weapon we already used?" "The previous virus was like giving them a cold," Zora explained. "This is like shutting down their brain. But we need to get it much closer to their central command structure. And we need to amplify the signal across their entire fleet," Dr. White added. "We've designed transmission amplifiers that must be positioned around the planet." Colonel Diane Lewis joined the conversation through a video link, her face dirty and tired from continuous ground fighting. "My teams can protect the amplifier stations on the ground, but we're stretched thin." On the main screen, Captain Susan Miller's face appeared from her ship in orbit. "We'll deliver the virus to their command ship." Lieutenant Johnson and I have already volunteered. The plan was desperate, but so was Earth's situation. 3 transmission amplifiers would be positioned around the planet, creating a field that would spread the virus throughout the swarm once it was activated at the source. As the final preparations were made, Earth received an unexpected message. Ships were approaching from the outer system, but not swarm vessels. These were ships of various designs bearing the markings of different species from across the galaxy. "This is Ambassador Tellax of the Free Coalition," came the transmission. "We have rejected the Galactic Council's abandonment policy. Your resistance has inspired many worlds. We come to stand with humanity." It wasn't a massive fleet, a few dozen ships from various species. But the sight of allies after months of fighting alone lifted spirits across Earth. These weren't the powerful council worlds, but smaller, independent species who had recognized something important in humanity's stand. The final battle began at dawn. The swarm pushed forward with relentless force, their ships sacrificing themselves by the hundreds to break through Earth's remaining defenses. The volunteer alien ships joined the fight, their various weapons and tactics adding chaos to the battlefield that confused the swarm's coordinated attacks. On the ground, Colonel Lewis and her forces fought desperately to protect the transmission amplifiers. Each site became a bloodied battleground as swarm landing parties targeted them with uncanny precision. "They know what we're planning," Lewis reported as her team repelled another attack on the African amplifier station. "They're focusing everything on these sites." Major Sam Garcia and his special forces defended the European amplifier. "We can hold them off," he reported, even as his team's numbers dwindled. "Just get that virus uploaded." In orbit, Captain Miller and Lieutenant Johnson piloted a small fast ship through the chaotic battle. Their vessel had been specially designed for this mission, minimally armed but with enhanced stealth technology and the strongest shields Earth could produce. "There it is," Alex said as they approached the heart of the swarm fleet. "Biggest one I've ever seen." The swarm command ship dwarfed everything around it, a massive construct of biological and mechanical components that pulsed with malevolent intelligence. Its surface rippled and shifted continuously, growing new weapons and defenses as they watched. "Remember the approach vector," Susan reminded him. "One pass, straight through their defensive line, then full burn to the central node." Their ship accelerated forward, weapons firing to clear a path. Swarm vessels swarmed around them, taking hits meant for the small Earth craft. The ship shuddered and groaned as enemy fire broke through their shields. "Engines at critical," Alex reported calmly. "We won't be able to pull out after delivery." Susan nodded. "We knew this was one way. Make it count." Their ship plunged toward the command vessel, trailing fire and debris. Against all odds, they broke through the final defensive line. The command ship loomed before them, massive and terrible. "Targeting the central node," Alex said. "Virus payload ready." On Earth, the transmission amplifiers powered up, creating a web of energy around the planet. Dr. White monitored the readings with growing hope. "The network is stable," he told Admiral Peterson. "When they deliver the virus, it will spread to every swarm ship in the system." Susan and Alex's ship crashed into the command vessel, the impact driving them deep into its organic structure. Systems failed around them as the ship's hull breached. Emergency force fields activated, giving them precious minutes. "Virus device intact," Susan reported, unbuckling from her seat. "Let's finish this." They moved through the wreckage of their ship into the strange, pulsing interior of the swarm vessel. The walls around them seemed alive, contracting as if to crush the intruders. "Central node should be directly ahead," Alex said, checking a scanner that was quickly failing. They reached a massive chamber unlike anything human eyes had seen before. At its center floated a pulsing structure that glowed with unnatural light. Patterns of energy flowed through it like thoughts through a brain. "The Overmind," Susan whispered. As they approached with the virus device, the chamber changed. The walls formed into something like a face. Inhuman, but clearly intelligent. A voice spoke directly into their minds. "Why do you resist?" it asked, its thoughts alien and cold. "All others accepted their place in our unity." "Humans don't surrender," Susan replied. moving forward with the device. We don't give up our freedom to become parts in your machine. Freedom is inefficient, the Overmind responded. Individual existence is pain. We offer perfection. Alex placed the virus device against the central node. We'll keep our imperfections, thanks. They activated the device together. The virus entered the Overmind, spreading through its systems with lightning speed. Above Earth, the transmission amplifiers flared to life, broadcasting the virus across the entire swarm fleet. The effect was immediate. Swarm ships began to move erratically, their perfect coordination shattered. Many simply stopped moving, drifting in space. Others turned on each other, firing weapons in random patterns. In the central chamber, Susan and Alex watched as the Overmind convulsed. The face on the wall contorted in what might have been pain or confusion. You have doomed yourselves, it told them as its consciousness began to fragment. Without us, the galaxy will fall into chaos. We'll take our chances with freedom, Susan replied as the chamber began to collapse around them. Across the solar system, the swarm fleet fell into disarray. Without the Overmind's guidance, the individual ships became separate entities with no purpose or direction. Many began to decay, their biological components dying without the central intelligence to sustain them. On Earth, people emerged from shelters to watch as the dark shapes in the sky began to drift away or fall burning through the atmosphere. The transmission amplifiers had worked perfectly, spreading the virus throughout the entire swarm presence. In the days that followed, the remaining alien allies helped humanity clean up the debris of the massive battle. More ships arrived. First, a trickle, then dozens as word spread of humanity's victory. Admiral Peterson stood in the rebuilt United Nations chamber as representatives from across the galaxy gathered. Some were species humanity had never seen before. Others were familiar, including members of the Galactic Council who had abandoned Earth. Humanity has done what no other species thought possible, said one alien diplomat. You've broken the swarm that threatened us all for centuries. Admiral Peterson looked across the gathered representatives. We didn't just fight for ourselves. We fought because giving up isn't in our nature. Now we offer the same hand of friendship to all who wish to build a better galaxy, one that stands together rather than abandons its own. As the new alliance took shape, memorials were built for those who had fallen, especially Captain Miller and Lieutenant Johnson, whose sacrifice had saved not just Earth, but perhaps the galaxy itself. The stars above Earth no longer seemed threatening, but full of promise. Humanity had survived its greatest test and emerged stronger. They had stood their ground when the galaxy gave up the fight, and in doing so, they had changed the course of galactic history forever.